Mexico is the economic powerhouse and manufacturing center of Latin America, and it has always been one of the most open economies in the world. In recent years, Mexico seems to be on the trend of becoming a new global manufacturing center again. European companies have invested and set up factories in Mexico one after another, and Asian countries have also actively used their offshore outsourcing advantages to restructure North American supply chains. Chinese netizens have also recently expressed concern that there are fewer and fewer made in China in American supermarkets, and more made in Mexico. But at the same time, some people have noticed Mexico's shortcomings. In my opinion, if Mexico wants to become a global manufacturing center, it cannot do without strengthening trade with China. Similarly, affected by factors such as the energy crisis and the continuous introduction of policies by the United States to force the reshoring of manufacturing industries, European companies are relocating to North America. So, in this context, can Mexico replace China and become a new world factory? Okay, in this video, let's dive deep into this issue. Mexico's VYNMSA website recently published an article analyzing that the development of the country's manufacturing industry has four major advantages. First, the government issued the Decree on the Promotion of Manufacturing, Processing Plants, and Export Services in November 2006, and introduced a number of products that are conducive to the development of the manufacturing industry. Second, due to its geographical proximity, the United States has become Mexico's largest trading partner, and 76.5% of Mexico's export products are first shipped to the United States. Third, Mexico is considered to be one of the countries with the most free trade agreements in the world, and has established trade partnerships with more than 50 countries. Fourth, the labor cost of Mexican manufacturing workers is relatively low. Mexican workers get about $4 per hour, while American workers get $22.45 per hour. On July 1, 2020, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, hereinafter referred to as USMCA, officially came into effect, replacing the North American Free Trade Agreement that had been implemented for more than 20 years. For the past 2 years, the industries that benefited the most from the agreement in Mexico were automobiles, machinery, and the manufacture of electrical and electronic equipment. According to data from the Mexican Ministry of Economy, from January 2020 to April 2022, the growth rate of Mexico's exports to the United States and Canada was 44%, which was significantly higher than the 28% growth rate of exports to other countries and regions. In view of Mexico's geopolitical advantages and attractive economic policies, more and more European companies have expanded their investment in it in recent years. According to data released by the Mexican Ministry of Economy in August this year, foreign investment in Mexico will increase by 49.2% in the first half of 2022, and manufacturing accounted for 34.3%. Some European and American media have analyzed that since the start of the trade war with China during Trump's tenure, Mexico is ready to accept companies that want to leave China. Since the beginning of this year, the number of people in Mexico's manufacturing industry has increased by 5%, exceeding the scale of employment growth before the epidemic. Similarly, affected by factors such as the energy crisis and the continuous introduction of policies by the United States to force the reshoring of manufacturing industries, European companies are relocating to North America. Against this background, can Mexico really become a new base for manufacturing? The United States Fortune magazine published an article on November 2, saying, "China's loss is Mexico's gain." The U.S. banking industry said that the transformation of the global supply chain means that nearshoring investment has become Mexico's once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As the supply chain crisis fuels inflation in the United States, more and more industries are choosing to move production closer. American companies such as automaker Ford and aerospace manufacturing giant Boeing have moved related operations to Latin America and the Caribbean. To put it simply, the supply chain crisis, the tension between the US and China, and the USMCA's 2-year entry into force have all created conditions for Mexico's best growth opportunity in the next decade. Having learned about the recent actions of Europe, America, and Mexico, let's now look at the Asian region. A South Korean report on October 20 this year mentioned that South Korean companies are using their nearshore production bases in Mexico to cope with supply chain restructuring to North America. According to data released by the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry in July this year, companies such as Samsung Electronics, SK, Hyundai Kia Motors, LG Electronics, and POSCO have invested in more than 450 factories in Mexico. Korean public opinion previously believed that Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries have more labor cost advantages. However, since this year, there have been news of large South Korean companies investing in Mexico. With the introduction of the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, South Korean auto companies are well aware that in order to obtain federal tax incentives, electric vehicles and their battery assembly, raw material procurement or processing, etc. must be carried out in North America, which makes Mexico a new production base for EV. At the end of July this year, South Korea's LG Electronics announced a $100 million capital increase in its Mexican factory. The automotive lighting subsidiary of LG Electronics plans to invest $102 million to expand its factory in Mexico. Hyundai Kia Group announced at the end of September that it will invest more than $400 million in an automobile factory in Mexico, mainly for electric vehicle production and technological upgrading. However, in my opinion, the development of Mexican manufacturing industry cannot be separated from the strengthening of Sino-Mexico trade. Of course, Mexico's investment advantages are obvious, but there are also many factors that make some foreign companies hesitate. The report of Spain's Santander Bank listed the main factors restricting the development of Mexico's manufacturing industry: heavy reliance on partnership with the United States, vulnerable to the influence of free trade agreements, high levels of corruption and rising crime rates. Certain industries are reserved for domestic companies and are extremely competitive. The economy is vulnerable to fluctuations in oil prices, infrastructure, especially in the transportation and oil industries, and education systems are underdeveloped. Underdeveloped. Violence by drug cartels still poses a serious threat to some regions, especially along the US-Mexico border. In my opinion, Mexico may obtain economic dividends in the short term with the help of USMCA and the trade war launched by the United States against China, but in the long run, Mexico has no possibility of obtaining long-term dividends in the world. The main reason is that the country's manufacturing industry and related products do not have the competitive advantage with Southeast Asian countries such as Vietnam and Malaysia. In addition, Mexico's manufacturing advantage is only compared to other Latin American countries, and this advantage is based on the large import of raw materials and intermediate products from the Asian industrial chain, especially the Chinese industrial chain. Taking home appliances as an example, there are a large number of assembly factories in Mexico. The screens, chips, and other components needed to assemble TVs need to be imported from China, Vietnam, and other countries. This also means that the more Mexico exports to the United States, the more it will import from countries such as China, which means that it is not easy for any country to replace China as a global manufacturing center. All in all, with the increase of Mexico's exports to the United States and the improvement of local manufacturing technology, Mexico will increase its dependence on China's exports, and the channels for Chinese products to enter the North American market will become more diverse. Therefore, rather than viewing USMCA as a threat to the development of China-Mexico trade, it is better to view it as an opportunity. Well, thanks for listening. Please put your comments below and share your insightful ideas. See you next time.